Hey. All right, so last time I put up a video, I mentioned that I have not been following any news stories, even the things that I'm usually interested in. And a few people chimed in with some things that they thought were noteworthy. Um, China, protests in China being one. What were the others? I don't know. I dipped a toe into my usual sources today, and the things that leapt out at me are one, and is bizarre that nobody mentioned it to me. Fusion energy breakthrough. They got more power out of a sustained fusion reaction than they put into it. That's a first. It's never happened before. That's huge. Now, does it mean we're going to have commercially available, nuclear fusion power in the next 10 years? No. Next 20 years? Probably not. Peter Zion did a video about this, and he says that one, I mean, yeah, this is a big breakthrough, but it's not scalable. The current design is not scalable. Two, there won't be many, even when they start coming online, there won't be many of these reactors, and they're going to have to supply power to far-flung locations, which means really what we need is room temperature superconducting materials for long-distance transmission, so we don't lose a lot of the electricity that we're, sending over transmission wires. But, I've been reading about the search for room temperature superconducting materials since the 80s, and yeah, they'd be nice. They'd solve all kinds of problems. But at present, we still send electricity through copper wires, over long distances. And yeah, we can lose like 40% of the power to to what is essentially friction, which is resistance in the transmission medium. That's already the case, and yet our electrical infrastructure still works. It's just not as efficient as it could be. But I mean, he's absolutely right. I mean, he said that this isn't going to be a commercial factor, and it's not going to be powering our infrastructure in any significant way, at least until 2050, probably until around 2100. Which brings to mind to me, the joke that fusion energy is the energy of the future, and it always will be. That's a funny joke. I mean, it's a twisted sort of concept that loops back on itself and reframes itself in a clever way. I mean, that's funny. But if that's the basis of your opinion on fusion energy, either relinquish your desire to have an opinion, because it's an uninformed opinion. I mean, it's an opinion formed by a thought stopper, or I know this is a huge ask, do a little research, find out a little bit about the history of the development of fusion energy, and uncover the details that reveal that it is not just a stuck project that's not making any progress. It's making loads of continuous progress. It's just the progress is slow, it's incremental, and it's very expensive, because every time you build these huge new reactors or experimental reactors, you discover what they can do, what they can't do. Well, then, to improve on it, you basically have to build a new one. And these things are huge and very costly. And yeah, this is a project. This is a human civilizational project that will play out over a century or more. And because you don't get to see the final result doesn't mean that nothing's happening. I mean, that's just, that drives so much, in my opinion, that drives so much of the collapse fetishism, is that I realize I'm going to die. I'm never going to get to see what happens after my span here on Earth has elapsed. Therefore, I would rather gravitate to a notion that says there won't be any particularly interesting human story on Earth once I'm gone. It's going to be a return to something simpler, something known, something. I'm not going to miss anything by dying. I'm not going to miss anything. It's a cope. It's comfort. Now, yes, I realize if you have decided that that's your narrative, and then you spend years searching, selectively filtering, searching for evidence that supports that notion, and assiduously avoiding any information that would run contrary to it, yeah, you're going to be fucking certain, and you'll think that I'm talking out my ass. Whatever. Anyway, my interest in the fusion story, because I realize, unlikely to have any particular impact in my lifetime, at least in terms of terrestrial power generation, but there are other applications that don't need to scale, that don't need to be particularly efficient. They just need to work, and they need to work reliably for a long period. What am I talking about? I'm talking about propulsion in space. I'm talking about nuclear propulsion. It could move our implements. Again, space is for robots. I'm not talking about sending people to Neptune or anything like that, but it would move our implements, the extensions of our intelligence and will throughout the solar system at much higher speeds and possibly beyond the solar system. Although I have to say, even after, castigating people for saying that there is no future that they won't be able to see that's of any interest or any consequence, getting outside of our solar system in terms of the larger human project, if there is to be one that goes on for thousands of years, that's huge, but it's too huge for me to really take an interest in personally. Like, I can take an interest in things that are going to happen after my death because I have kids. Hopefully I'll have grandkids. I know that I have, successors to experience that. But thousands of years out, like, I don't feel any particular connection to ancestors of mine who have been dead for thousands of years. My similarity to them genetically has been diluted and changed so many times through so many sexual pairings over the millennia. Well, I'm just talking about 1,000 years. So the millennia, the one millennium, I guess is the singular. I just don't see any, continuity. I mean, logically, intellectually, I can trace the continuity from, the first self-dividing cell, or the first sexual union that swapped genetic material between cells. I can understand that there is a continuity between that first organism that reproduced sexually and me. Even the first asexually reproducing organism, provided its line didn't die out and it, did lead to, sexually reproducing organisms like myself. I understand there's a continuity there, but I don't feel any identity, any kinship based on that. Other than, when I'm feeling particularly expansive and I can say, and get into a transpersonal headspace where not only do I identify with this body and this, social security number, because that's one of the things that doesn't change about you over the course of your life is your identifying numbers. I feel a connection and a sense of identity, not just with this organism, but with humanity generally, and even larger than that, with living things generally. Yeah, that's a great headspace to be in, in the morning after your ayahuasca trip when you're journaling or whatever. But, on a day-to-day basis, I don't inhabit that headspace. I am me. I identify with this body. But I do still have interests that are going to play out, stories that I'm following, events, processes unfolding that will proceed and get more interesting after this body has stopped taking breath and is, laid to rest, or hopefully either allowed to decay. I'm not a big fan of embalming, or burnt, incinerated. No, I'm not dwelling on death today. I will dwell on injury for a moment. Somebody encouraged me to, basically said, look, you've proved your point. You can do the work. Now get out of snowmaking and into some safer department before it's too late. And I'm not gonna. What I've discovered doing some work, just trying to uncover my core values, one of them is commitment. And, if I make a commitment to see something through, and then I flake on that commitment, that will haunt me. And, the potential downside is enough to risk injury. And, I'm about a month out from my COVID now, and I can feel my body adjusting. I mean, I'm sore. My back hurts. My elbows hurt. My right knee is starting to hurt. But I can also feel that my lung capacity is increasing, and, I'm not working out in the gym, so I have lost muscle mass, but, I feel capable in a way that I wasn't particularly capable when I got here. And I'm adjusting to the altitude. So, I mean, whatever department I transfer to, the altitude will remain the same. But if I'm not engaged in the same level of physical activity, then I won't get as much benefit from it. And, the physical exertion, while, meeting it was a psychological challenge and something that I'm happy to, continue to do, the physical benefits of coming and doing a hard job with long hours of physical labor at high altitude was one of the attractions of this thing. So I'm going to stick with it for commitment sake and for the sake of the physical benefits of doing extended hours of heavy labor at high altitude, I'm going to keep at it. So anyway, we're approaching 10 minutes. I'm going to stop and I'll look for your comments because I really, really do appreciate them. Talk to you soon.